Hey y'all, welcome back to the Hot Rod Dad channel. Glad you came. I hope you stay. If you haven't already, take one little microsecond, hit the like and subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Today I'm headed out here to the shop and I've got some pieces left over from the frame on the BLT here and a piece of 2-inch angle. We'll see if I can get started on some engine mounts. If I have time, I'm going to move on to the transmission cross member. So y'all stay tuned. Now I'm getting started on the passenger side engine mounts. This is the part that bolts to the engine. I'm starting out just the same as the driver's side, just a piece of 2-inch angle right here. Whoops. And you can see right here, I've just had to make a relief for the fuel pump. I just drilled the last hole right there. These two will bolt to the engine. That one will be to the biscuit motor mount. I just wanted to show you this right here. This is how you know you're doing some good drilling metal. And you take it slow and get those nice curly cues, those nice spirals, and you know you're doing some good. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this template that I used on the front cross member, because it has the same angle right here. I'm going to transfer this angle onto the piece of tubing right there and get that cut out, and I'll also get the correct length that I need, and the other end will just cut off square. Now that I've got this angle cut onto the tubing, I took this tubing, clamped it onto the upper part of the motor mount that's bolted to the engine, and I marked and center punched the hole that corresponds with the upper mount, and I'm getting ready to drill this. This is a 7/8 inch hole. If you can see on this lower part of the motor mount, that step is what centers the engine mount right there. So this is a hole saw that's designed for electrical fittings. So back when I used to do electrical work, a 3/4 inch conduit fitting takes a 7/8 inch diameter hole. And this is a professional hole saw. It's very high quality, and it cuts a nice clean hole, unlike some of the hole saws you get at Lowe's or some of the hardware stores. This is kind of designed for, you know, Joe homeowner, one-use type thing. These are really good quality, and it should cut a very nice hole, and it's just the perfect size for this motor mount. So I'm going to get started on that. So I'm just using a little WD-40 right here for cutting fluid. It's probably not ideal, but that's what I've got laying around here at the moment. If you've got a suggestion for you know, your favorite kind of cutting fluid right there, throw a comment down in the comment section. I'd like to see what y'all suggest. There we go, we're through. You can see what a nice clean hole that made. Should work out perfect. Now that I've got this hole drilled right here, you can see that hole saw did a very nice job in the drill press. You can see that the top part of the engine mount will sit right there on top like that. And the bottom part of the motor mount, if I can get it up through there, will center right in that hole. However, I'm running into a little problem right there, because the bolt is longer than the width of that tube. It's bottoming out right there, and actually this bolt is designed to go in from the bottom, and the nut and this washer right here will be on top. So what I've decided to do, I'm going to plate this end right here to give this some more strength, because this is only 1/8 inch thick tubing. I don't want it to bend or sag any right there because the weight of the engine will be right on top here. So what I'm going to do is flip this over, and I will drill or cut out a larger hole on the bottom side so that it's big enough that I can put that bottom part of the mount in from the underside, and I'll have access to install the bolt from the bottom side like that. So I'm going to get started on that. So this hole saw is 2-inch. It's a little bit larger than the lower part of the motor mount. You can see right there. It should allow plenty of room to install that from the bottom. And it's not as good a quality as the first one I used, but I think if I chunk it up in the drill press here, go real slow, I think that it will work just fine. So we'll give that a try. Main thing to keep in mind is to use lots of lubricant on when you're cutting larger holes like that. Just keep that just as cool as it can be. So that did pretty good. It did waller around a little bit, and that hole is going to be a little bit larger than that first hole saw I used. There's the blank. I always keep these just in case I need a large washer for something, a large thick washer. Those work out great. Now I've got this kind of assembled a little bit. You can see how that engine mount works. On the bottom side, you can see it's got plenty of access right there to install that lower half. And the last thing I got to do is I'm going to cut a plate right here, like I said, and weld that up. I'll clean that, grind it all smooth, and then this will be ready to weld onto the frame. So right there is the finished product. I just took a flap disc right there and cleaned up the edges of the welding right there. You can see it got good access to the lower part of the motor mount. Now all that's left to do is install it on the frame. Just like that. So I've got these pieces of 1.5 inch square tubing. These are about 1/4 inch wall, looks like. I can't even remember what I saved these off of. This piece of commercial equipment or something. Got some very precision cuts right here, 45-degree angles on them. I think I'm going to cut these short pieces off and see if I can whip up a transmission cross member out of those. Now that I've liberated these 2 shorter pieces from these longer pieces, I've laid this out, took one of those short pieces, and I duplicated the angle on the other side, and I've overlapped these by a couple of inches right here, and that'll create a little step down to clear the transmission tail shaft, and I'll just weld these up on all 4 sides right here. If this were a nice car that I were going to paint, I would plate these holes here and slick it up real nice, but this is just going to be just a beater, so I'm just going to weld it up. I'll just leave those open, and if I want to clean it up later, I can. Now I've got all these pieces tacked together, and I've got them clamped to the bottom of the frame, and what I'm going to do is come in here and mark the angles so I can cut those ends off. I've got clamps all over this thing. I've got this piece of tubing clamped on here, and I've got the center point of the tail shaft marked on that so I can eyeball that and get the transmission centered. I've got clamps up there on the motor mounts. I've got clamps back here on the springs. I've got clamps everywhere. I actually ran out of clamps, so I had to get out these big carpentry clamps here that I'm using on that. So I'm going to get these ends marked, and I'll cut those angles off, and I'll be ready to hopefully give that a try. This, I hope, will clear, and there will be on the front, you can see the mount, transmission mount right there. There will be a piece of angle coming off of this that I weld on there that will go forward, and those two holes on the mount will go into that piece of angle. And this, really, this little dip right here, really all that's for is to clear the tail shaft of the transmission. I'm hoping it clears that speedometer cable, so we'll find out here in just a few minutes. If not, you know, I've not got anything invested in that metal, really. It's been laying around here forever, and it just took me a few minutes to lay that out. So, you know, if it doesn't work, it's just some scrap metal and a few minutes wasted there tinkering around with it. So I'm gonna get those cut off and we'll see where it ends up. All right, so now I've got that cross member in there. It's just sitting in there. I tapped it in with a hammer right there. It's pretty tight fit, so I really like the way this has turned out. Good clearance around the tail shaft of the transmission, and I will come off the front right here with a piece of angle down and forward, and that will pick up the mounting point for the transmission. Normally I would make these transmission cross members so that they're removable. I think I'm just going to weld this one in solid to give the frame some rigidity, and also, you know, there's not a whole lot to this car, so it's going to be really easy to pull the engine and the transmission together. If you need to service the transmission, it wouldn't be a big deal because everything's out in the open. Very little involved in pulling the engine and transmission. You pull the radiator off, loosen up the transmission bolts and the engine mounts, and, you know, take the radiator hoses off and stuff. You could have that sucker out of there in probably less than a half hour. So I think I'll just weld that in solid. So I've got the body set back up on there temporarily. I've got the radiator in the chassis, just to kind of get an idea of what things are going to look like. I really like the way the engine mounts turned out. I think I'm only going to change one thing about that. I think I'm going to add a brace that will go underneath the engine right there like that, and it will bolt from one engine mount to the other. I'll probably cut that out of probably 3/8 inch steel, and it will bolt on each engine mount on the frame, and that's just to prevent any twisting of the frame due to the weight of the engine. I don't think that would really be an issue, but, you know, when in doubt, make it stout is my motto. Here you can see the transmission cross member. I think I'm going to come in here and put some bracing, diagonal bracing, back to the frame on each side, kind of like a K-member, I guess, and that will add a little strength to the frame as well. So there's a little update. Moving on to the front suspension next, I guess, on the next episode of the BLT. So till then,
y'all get out there and build something.
That's right. Y'all get out there and build something.